Senator Whitehouse just exposed a data breach nightmare that should terrify every American with a Social Security number. While officials dodge questions about the Muskrat crowd infiltrating databases, a whistleblower reveals massive datasets were copied to unsecured servers. This isn't bureaucratic fumbling, it's your private information in the hands of unelected tech billionaires who treat government data like their personal playground.
Thanks very much, Chairman. Mr. Modi, when Commissioner Bessignano was here, I asked him about what I call DOGE, the Muskrat crowd infiltration at Social Security Administration, and whether he would take a look at whether they had either damaged databases or exfiltrated data improperly or left back doors for private access to to Social Security data. And what he said was, there will be a total review. Yes. Will you commit to making sure that that total review gets accomplished?
Senator, thank you for the question. Absolutely, we'll continue to monitor PII at Social Security.
That's a different thing than completing a total review. What I'd like to hear you say is the total review that he promised will be completed honestly and accurately. Can you say yes to that?
A total review of what, Senator?
A total review of the integrity of Social Security databases, whether they've been...
Yeah, absolutely. We will continue to monitor the integrity of Social Security databases on a daily basis.
All right. That also did not answer the question. Let me be more specific. The chief data officer of Social Security, who has since left, said that a huge data set named Numinee was copied onto an unsecured cloud server, and that this is a very high-risk proposition. The Social Security Administration has denied that, so now we have two competing versions of what happened. Will you see to it that the Numinee question is answered as part of that total review?
The Numinee database must be secure, and absolutely we will continue to monitor the security of the Numinee database.
Ditto something called the Federal Parent Locator Service. Will you see to it that whether or not the Federal Parent Locator Service still is secure and secure from hacking and infiltration and so forth?
Yes,
that will be reviewed as part of that so-called total review?
Yes, Senator.
You will. Great. Okay. You didn't quite answer the questions, but you're close enough for now, I guess. But we'll continue to pursue this because I think it's vitally important, particularly after people out of the tech sector and the info sector and data system sector have been messing around in these databases to make sure that they actually are secure and data isn't being exfiltrated to private actors, because these days data is gold. Mr. Getman, you had your undergraduate studies in economics. Is it true that it's a pretty basic economic proposition that negative externalities from a product should be baked into the price of that product?
Thank you for that question, Senator Whitehouse. I enjoyed our robust conversation about numerous issues regarding the reciprocal trade frameworks, and I think that as we talk about externalities, we're talking about our discussion regarding environmental arbitrage that goes on across the globe. And
do you agree that that's a basic economic proposition, all Milton?
It's a cost that could be shifted from, yes, Senator, cost that could be shifted from one country or one company to another.
So let me be a little bit more specific about that. If a foreign country, for instance, or a company in a foreign country acquires competitive advantage against U.S. competition by virtue of its failure to meet health or environmental standards, is that an appropriate thing to look at for tariffing to correct the imbalance and put the U.S. company on a fair footing with the foreign competitor?
Senator, thank you for raising that issue again. As we discussed, we agreed that environmental enforcement, among other arbitrages that are occurring out in the global economy, was something that we should look at significantly and pursue and work with your team on. And specifically, what we've seen in Southeast Asia is the is waste product, plastic waste, being.
That's
and ending
just
up
where I
in the
was going to
mid-
go in my next
and-
question.
and-
You remember our conversation.
Absolutely,
Good.
Senator, and ending up in the middle
Because I think
of
that
the
you
Pacific.
have we all have enormous amounts of waste plastic floating into our oceans. That is a common burden for all of us. President Trump was very articulate about this in the ocean plastics bill signing that I attended. And one of the reasons for this is the failure of these competitor countries to have adequate waste management systems in place. Will the adequacy of our competitor countries' waste management be an issue that you will take a look at, and with particular reference to the plastic waste problem?
Thank you, Senator, for again raising this issue, and I agree that it is an issue that we should dive into more deeply, and I look forward to working with you and your team on that.
My time is up.
What Senator Whitehouse accomplished in this exchange wasn't just oversight, it was a masterclass in exposing how institutional evasion works when powerful interests want to avoid accountability. The deputy commissioner's repeated non-answers weren't bureaucratic confusion. They were a deliberate strategy to avoid committing to investigate what may be the largest unauthorized access to Americans' personal data in Social Security history. The core issue here is staggering in scope. A federal agency that holds the most sensitive financial and personal information on over 70 million Americans allowed what Whitehouse called the Muskrat crowd. DOGE operatives with no official government authority to access databases containing Social Security numbers, earnings histories, disability records, and family information. When Whitehouse pressed for a total review of database integrity, the response was bureaucratic word salad designed to sound responsive while committing to nothing. This matters because data security isn't about technology, it's about trust and power. When unelected tech billionaires can access government databases without proper oversight, you're witnessing the privatization of government surveillance capabilities. The whistleblower's revelation that a huge dataset was copied onto an unsecured cloud server isn't just a security breach. It's evidence of systematic data exfiltration by private actors who now possess information that could be used for political targeting, commercial exploitation, or foreign intelligence purposes. The deputy commissioner's evasions follow a predictable pattern. When asked about the total review, he pivoted to honoring PII on a daily basis. When pressed on the specific data copying allegations, he retreated to generic promises about database security. This isn't incompetence, it's calculated avoidance, designed to run out the clock while protecting the real decision makers from accountability. Whitehouse's mention of the Federal Parent Locator Service reveals the true scope of this infiltration. This system contains kidney information, location data, and family relationships for millions of Americans involved in child support cases. If compromised, it could expose domestic violence victims, enable stalking, or facilitate identity theft on an unprecedented scale. The casual dismissal of these concerns by officials suggests they either don't understand the stakes or are deliberately minimizing them. The economic discussion about environmental externalities might seem unrelated, but it reveals the same pattern of institutional capture. When Whitehouse asked about incorporating environmental costs into trade policy, the nominee deflected with vague promises of cooperation. This suggests that both data security and environmental protection are being subordinated to the interests of the same corporate networks that now have unprecedented access to government systems. The real danger isn't just what's already happened, it's what this access enables going forward. Once private actors have copied government databases, that information can be cross-referenced with commercial data to create surveillance profiles more comprehensive than anything the government itself possesses. The Muskrat crowd isn't just accessing Social Security data, they're building the infrastructure for a private intelligence network that operates outside constitutional constraints. What should alarm every American is how easily this happened. No congressional authorization, no public debate, no meaningful oversight. A handful of tech executives simply declared they needed access to government databases, and career officials apparently complied. This represents a fundamental breakdown in the separation between public and private power that the Constitution was designed to prevent. The solution requires more than better cybersecurity. It demands a complete audit of who accessed what data, how it's being stored, and what safeguards exist to prevent future breaches. Congress must compel testimony from the DOGE operatives themselves, not just the bureaucrats who enabled them. And there must be criminal referrals if federal data protection laws were violated. The timing of this infiltration is particularly concerning. Social Security faces a funding crisis by 2034, making it politically vulnerable to privatization schemes. If private actors now possess comprehensive data on every beneficiary, they can model exactly how to restructure the system for maximum profit extraction. This isn't just about data security, it's about preserving Social Security as a public program rather than a private commodity. This exchange reveals that our democratic institutions are being systematically compromised by private actors who face no electoral accountability but wield enormous influence over public resources. When senators can't get straight answers about who's accessing citizen data, democracy itself is under assault. The total review Whitehouse demanded isn't just good government. It's essential for determining whether we still have a government that serves the public rather than private interests. The precedent being set here extends far beyond Social Security. If tech billionaires can infiltrate one agency's databases without meaningful oversight, what prevents them from accessing tax records, medical files, or law enforcement databases? This represents a fundamental shift toward techno-oligarchy, where democratic accountability becomes optional for those with sufficient wealth and connection.